Hello again, this is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. Again, before we go into our textbook and I start going over the PowerPoints for the 7th edition of Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5 by Terry Felt Morris, I'm doing a few what I've called pre-lectures, and I'm up to the second one right now. So I'm going to talk about a few different things, and again, even if it doesn't totally make sense, these are things that I have gone through before, and these are lectures. These three are ones that I've created, but I just want you to see some of the stuff that's in here. So before we had a little bit of an introduction to kind of a little bit of history to how we got to HTML5, and let's talk a little bit more about it right now. Before HTML5, most everything was defined as being either block or inline. The difference between these is when something is block, it has a blank line before it and a blank line after it. When it's inline, it does not. All right? So HTML5, as it says, is more granular. There's different things that you can put in. These are things that you're going to see inside of, in meta tags. And this is stuff that you'll see in the head section of a document. All right? And again, notice this is all hyperlinked up the wazoo, so you can take a look in there, and hopefully that'll help you if you have questions. All right? These are some of the major new tags that you're going to see in HTML5. They were explained in the last presentation, or I showed you links in the last presentation, but article aside, nav, section, header, and footer. All right? Now, you're going to go through the H1 through H6 tags. We're going to go through that in chapter 1 of the book. We're going to talk about some of the different types of tags that are in there, like strong versus a B tag for bold, M, which stands for emphasis, versus I for italicize, etc. When we get into later chapters, we'll talk about the new audio and video classes that were created. And this is a biggie because this is much of the reason that HTML5 came to be, is there's such a disparity between how different browsers handle audio and video. And the idea was eventually audio and video would be handled in a very standardized way using HTML5. All right, we'll talk about some of the interactive content. As it says, the HTML5 spec will describe the different elements that are available in the language. Here are some of those elements. Again, if you look on here, it should say, this is from the Mozilla developer site, and you can go there. The idea is when you put images on a web page, they should now be surrounded by figure tags. And inside of those figure tags, you can have a fig caption tag, which is a way to mark up the caption that appears inside of a figure. There's a mark tag. All right. And typically what it'll do is it'll take whatever text you mark up and it'll show in a different color. Oftentimes it'll be yellow. There's a progress tag that you can use if you want to set up different kinds of progress meters. And you can work along that with a meter tag, where you have minimums and maximums, etc. There's a time tag, because they're trying to get a lot more granular working with time. As it says here, this is designed to deal with problems humans have reading dates and times in the way that's different from the way that a computer would do it. There's a details element. As it says, for marking up a section of a document that might be hidden but could be expanded. So it might have one of the little plus things by it where you can expand or minus to contract. Deprecated elements, as it said, are now being referred to as obsolete. I have to get used to that word because for so many years I've been used to saying that they're deprecated. All right, it says the difference is while a deprecated element will eventually be removed, an obsolete element will not be removed. So in other words, they'll still be there, but the idea is even though they're there, you're not supposed to use them. And if you go out to the HTML tag list, all right, you can find out which ones, which is out on w3schools.com, or if you just search for HTML5 or HTML tag list, it'll show you under the W3 schools listing, the ones that have been made obsolete are now kind of grayed out, all right, when they're described. Here's some other changes. Again, the idea is you don't use a B for bold tag anymore. Now you use strong. And that represents importance. And that is especially important for people who have, maybe who are blind or have some kind of a sight impairment. I has been replaced with M, which means emphasis. The big element is basically become obsoleted. It's not very much, it shouldn't be very much used. The small element now is basically used just for footer content, and that's about it. The cite element, as it says, should be used just for a title of work. The DL tag, it changed from definition list to description list. I still don't use it often. This is a big one right here. In HTML5, the validator is no longer concerned with coding style. That's why if you accidentally put something in uppercase when you shouldn't, the system doesn't care. So what does count as an error in HTML5? When you take an element that's meant to be used in some way and you use it in a way that it's not meant to be used. Including an element that shouldn't be there. Missing something that's required. Incorrectly setting up attributes. Anything that, as it says, that conflicts with the HTML5 specification. Some elements required in pre-HTML5 are no longer required, but you put them in anyway. Void elements don't need the slash at the end. Use BR and not that BR. Use HR and not that HR, etc. Even though elements can be in any kind of case, use lowercase. Always quote attributes. All right, just because it says you don't have to do something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. All right. All right. That's about it. So as it says, HTML5 also has introduced a lot more stuff with forms that we'll talk about a lot later in the class. Previously, a lot of this stuff had to be done with JavaScript, where it still can be. It's not necessary to do that anymore. Now, the last presentation on this that I'm going to give, which will be very shortly, is very long, but I'm not going to go over much of it. It's really not going to take very long. If you notice, it's got 97 slides, where the other two had both be at 25 to 30. But my guess is it'll only take me about 10 minutes or so to go through it, because it's just a laundry list of things that you're going to have to start becoming familiar with. So I'll be back with that very shortly.